Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 131, and we've got another very special episode for you guys tonight. Returning to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast, our coach, Don Rodrigues, and the great Christine Bannon-Rodrigues. We're going to be talking about the Ocean State Grand Nationals and a whole lot more, going back through some sport karate history as well. One big thing to remember is that today is the deadline to get your music submitted if you plan on using music on stage at the Ocean State Grand Nationals. So make sure you're getting that done. We'll also remind you later in the show, and we've got a few more updates about the event. But before we bring them on screen and dive into our interview for this evening, I also wanted to make a couple of quick housekeeping announcements for Sport Karate Zone. First and foremost, something that I forgot to mention in the last episode is that if you were staying in touch with the Sport Karate Zone press release, you might remember that we mentioned that there would be a second podcast coming to this platform featuring my lovely wife, Gabrielle Rudolph, and Sammy Smith. It was originally going to be titled Girls in Gis, but we were doing some research and we found that there's actually an Instagram and social media platform that already exists. It looks like it's a jiu-jitsu-based platform. Shout out to them. And they're titled Girls in Gis. So we're not going to be trying to steal their thunder. We are in the process of rebranding that podcast idea to Kick Chicks, so that it's still very much on the way. It is under development. Logos are being finalized, things of that nature. And that is going to be coming down the pipeline to you guys very, very soon. And so you'll have two podcasts to enjoy here on Sport Karate Zone. Of course, the Jackson Rudolph Podcast, and then Sammy Smith and Gabrielle Rudolph on Kick Chicks. So everybody get very excited for that and stay tuned for more updates. That's something I'm really excited about. It's going to be a huge step forward for sport martial arts, having a female-only podcast kind of talking about their experiences and in a sport that historically, percentage-wise, has been very dominated in population by males, right? And so kind of having them as role models for the young lady warriors in the community, I think is going to be a really good thing for the sport. But without further ado, and speaking of lady warriors, we've got Christine Bannon-Rodrigues on the show tonight. So I'm not going to hesitate any longer. These two need very little introduction. The promoters of the Ocean State Grand Nationals and two sport karate icons themselves. Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast, Coach Don Rodrigues and Christine Bannon-Rodrigues. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and get the comments pulled up here. So whether you're tuning in on Facebook or YouTube, I'll be able to see all of your comments in real time. So be sure, if you have a question about the event or about anything we're discussing this evening, be sure to drop that in the comment section down below. And I want to start the show by talking about how excited I am for the Ocean State Grand Nationals finals to be returning to the CW network. Ocean State's being one of the few tournaments that finds a way to get their tournament broadcast on television. I love the way that you guys do it with kind of a multi-part series that gets released to the audience for the CW network. And let's start the show by just opening up the floor for you guys to talk a bit about how special of an opportunity that is.
Well, as you know, Jackson, the tournament's been around for a few years, you know.
Just a few.
This is our 42nd Ocean State Grand National, and you know, it's exciting. It's a real pain to run, and but you know, at the same time, the end result's always really good. It's great for sport karate. It's great for everybody. You know what I mean? And you know, we're really excited about it. We're geared up for this year, and I'm more excited about this tournament than I have been in a few, you know.
Yeah, and getting it aired on the CW channel is always great because of the fact that you're getting out to the general population. It's not just martial art enthusiasts, you know, it's everyone from grandma to, you know, the kids. They just tune in and hopefully they learn a little bit more about martial arts and maybe want to sign up one day.
Absolutely. And that's really the era that our sport is in right now, is trying to reach back out to the community outside of the martial arts community and try to bring fans to the sport. I think for so long, the sport's been focused on attracting more competitors, which Absolutely, we want to attract more competitors, right? But in order for the competitors in the sport to get more exposure and to get more compensation, which, trust me, we're going to get to compensation tonight. But in order for these things to happen and the sport to continue to grow, it's about spectators. It's about viewership. And a lot of that goes through social media. It goes through broadcasts like this. And I think it's a huge step forward for Ocean States to do what you guys do by bringing our sport to a platform that's much larger than just the sport karate community itself. And I went ahead and brought up increased compensation for competitors. There's nobody that does that better than you two at the Ocean State Grand Nationals. Regarding anybody that's thinking about registering, which this episode is going to convince you to register for the Ocean State Grand Nationals if you have not already. I did want to point out the pre-registration deadline to get some additional discounts is going to be this Sunday, March 24th. So make sure, again, all you should have to do is listen to this podcast and you know that you want to register. So go on and do it as soon as we put it up here. But while we're on that topic of compensation, $35,000 of prize money, $15,000 of which dedicated to the open weight super fights challenges. That is so amazing that there's no tournament that's putting that out, especially for those specific super fight events, to have such a big payday and pay all the way first through eighth place. Again, I just want to open the floor and let both of you talk about it. I mean, it's awesome. Just tell us more about that and why you do it for the community, and how important it is for the sport to continue doing things like this to keep growing.
Well, first of all, I got to tell you that, we're going to be making sport karate history at the Ocean State this year, because there's never, ever been $10,000 given out in one division. We're not talking about an overall grand here. We're not talking about that. We're talking about one division. You enter this World Challenge, open weight World Challenge for men, and there's $10,000 all in there. And it's divided in the 8 places, with the first place winner getting $4,000. Second place gets a measly $2,000. The 2 third place winners are going to get $1,000 apiece, and 5th through 8th is going to get $500 each. Now, we're really excited and proud to give that kind of money out. You know what I mean? And we feel like the competitors deserve to have a shot, especially the really guys that work hard all the time. These guys, sport karate fighters, they work really hard in the dojo to get ready for this thing. You know what I mean? They really want to go out there and compete. Now, we had an opportunity, and thank God we had a sponsor like the Zingari family that came up and is able to, give us the money to do this here. And when first was brought up, this was a great idea to give it right back to the competitors and not to us, you know what I mean? And then, of course, Maggie Messina is doing the same thing for the women. And she's coming up with the $5,000 to do the same thing that we're doing for the women. And it's exactly in half. And there's eight places in that division for that too. So, and that another one is for women, $5,000 for one division. Okay, I've never heard of it in all the years that I've been in karate that someone has ever offered that. And me and Christine we're really excited. And I got to tell you that I'm excited that night to be able to give those people the money. Believe it or not, you know what I mean. So, we're really excited. We're going to get some really good competitors, I believe.
And how could you not when you're bringing historic prize money to the sport karate community? I mean, to put it in perspective for those of you tuning in, I mean, a few years ago when NASCA was coming out of the COVID pandemic and everything, you could show up to a NASCA tournament and win the whole tournament, win the overall grand championship, the most coveted award at a standard NASCA event, and come home with $500. Now you can show up to the Ocean State Grand Nationals, register, like if you're an adult male fighter, you register for that Super Fights Challenge division, you get 8th place and you're going home with $500. Like the scale of that is so amazing. And I know that it's a huge step forward for the sport, not just for the obvious reasons of more money's a good thing, right? But if you look at other professional sports, this is how it is structured, right? You don't have to be the best golfer in the world, for example, to be able to make a very, very comfortable living playing golf. You could just be in the top half of players in a particular golf tournament and still make a very, very good paycheck. Right now, obviously, we don't have the viewership that golfers have yet, but we want to try to get to that point. And that prize money structure where you have at the very top, you're getting a big, big payday, which for sport karate, this is obviously a big, big payday. And then the trickle down from there, that is something that is only going to move the sport forward. Right. And Christine, I wanted to direct part of this discussion to you as well, talking about how big it is for Maggie Messina and Female Fighters 2 to be bringing that prize money for the females as well. And really, we've seen huge growth in the women's fighting divisions over the last several years. There's kind of been this call throughout social media that like, hey, if the female fighters want to get more money, come out to the events more. And they've done that. We've seen a bunch of top name female fighters coming to a lot of these big events. So I just want to give you an opportunity to speak about how female fighting has continued to grow in recent years and kind of get back to where it once was and some of the heydays where you were fighting and there were a bunch of top fighters out on the circuit. Just kind of talk about that growth and how special it is to be able to reward those women for that.
Yeah, I think, back when I was competing, the divisions were packed. I mean, where did I compete at the battle one year and in a 110 and under division, which you'd barely get anybody to even make that weight nowadays. But 110 and under, we had like 20 something girls in it, way back, and all the divisions were packed like that. So, we saw kind of a lull and there weren't a lot of women out there fighting. The divisions have been small. And over the last couple of years, and thanks to Female Fighters Matter 2 and Maggie, it has been building up and we're seeing more women coming out in the fighting. And that was that thing last year. I mean, believe me, I want equality for females just as much as any other woman out there. But when you have a small division, you can't justify them getting $10,000 in the division. Or last year was it five? 7,500. So, we gave $1,000 for the open weight, but, told the ladies last year, come out and we'll do something next year. And they did. We had, around 22 women last year.
We had about 23 or 24 girls, women. And that was great. You know what I mean? And let's face it, Jackson, I mean, you're a sports fiend here. There's a women's movement out there. And there's a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark in college basketball. Juju Watson, same thing, what she's doing. You know what I mean? There's a movement there. They were scalping tickets at her basketball games. You know what I mean? I mean, it's exciting to see this stuff coming about. And you know what? Women have come a long way. They deserve it. And I'm only mentioning college basketball because that's what's going on right now, the NCAA. But there's a lot of that, a lot of golf and everywhere, in tennis. What was the biggest names in tennis for a long time, right? It was the Serena sisters. You know what I mean? So Serena what was it? I mean, I forget, but nonetheless, they were a big draw. And we want to get that in karate. You know what I mean? We want to get into martial arts. They deserve it too. They work hard also. You know what I mean? Everybody does, What
I think that's really great about the 8 places is, in a forms division, usually your top person is going to win the division. If we had, the grands for the $1,000 at night and stuff, usually that's how it is. I mean, sometimes one of your top people might have a little wobble or drop. But in fighting, you could get, Bailey Murphy and Cam Dawson as first match. You know what I mean? You could get some crazy matches, where either one of them could win the division, get matched up early. So, by having the 8 places, you have a better chance of, not getting that top fighter and being out of it. So if you can make it down to that, final 8, you got a good chance of winning some decent money. So
what's funny was Jackson that we had a couple of people say, I think I can take 8th place. You know what I mean? Which I thought was pretty funny. But listen, we're really excited about it. And, again, you got to thank our sponsors for doing this here. And you know what? We urge the other promoters to try to go out and get sponsors like this here. Maybe they can do it too, But let me tell you something. And I do want to say this because it's really important. All the NASCAR promoters work really hard at their events. They really do. You know what? They go out there and I know what it is. And me and Christine here, we know what we do to go through ours. And I know what these guys are going through to run their event. And I take my hat off to them. But you know what? I got to tell you, the NASCAR circuit is, there's not another circuit like it in the world. You will not go to anybody's circuit. We got 10 of the 12 tournaments that we have on our circuit have been doing it for 40 years or longer. Think about that. 10 of our 12 tournaments.
And we lost 2 years because of COVID. Even though we ran it virtual, we don't count that as
we don't count them.
Our 42nd or 43rd.
Right.
So
the thing is that, you know what? These guys have worked long and hard for many, many years to keep this. And there's not another circuit like it in the world. I don't care where you go. They work really hard. They're making their tournaments really good. So I just want everybody to know that I'm proud to be a part of the NASCAR circuit. We are. And you know what? We just want to, thank them all for working really hard the way they do. You know what I mean?
And I think that's a beautiful message, Coach. And I think people have often asked me, like, especially people who are first getting into sport martial arts and trying to figure out, what it means to travel this circuit or that circuit. And, really what makes NASCAR the big deal that it is goes back to that history. The fact that you've got those 10 events on the circuit currently that have been around for over 40 years, because that is what attracts the top talent. In a sport where you certainly don't compete for money, you don't compete for fame, right? It boils down to you do it because you love it. And if you do it at a high level, you're passionate about winning that title at the Ocean States that's been around for over 40 years, at the Warrior Cup or the U.S. Open or the Battle of Atlanta, or back in the day, the Bluegrass, like there are the Diamonds, or any of these like big prestigious tournaments. That is what I get amped up talking about it, right? Like that's the reason that athletes do this. We do it because we want that prestige, and that prestige only comes from history. It's the rich history of the events that makes the events matter. It's not, what the award looks like. It's the history of that event and competing against others who are considered to be the best in the world, right? Testing yourself against the best. And when you come to NASCAR, whether it's forms, weapons, or fighting, that's what you're doing. You're testing yourself against some of the very best at what we do, and probably the highest concentration of those who are the best at what we do. And Christine made a great point about how in some of those first round fights, you could get some of those superstar matchups of a rematch of last year's finals, like a Cameron Ali versus a Bailey Murphy, right? And I think everybody wants to see that matchup. But the reality is it could happen in the first round. So what does that mean? It means that if you are anywhere close to Rhode Island, you better buy a spectator pass and be there for the entire eliminations so that you can see some of this action. And just like March Madness is crazy with the bracket of 64 going all the way down to the champion, you're going to get to see something like that. I would imagine we're going to be in the ballpark, if not greater than 64 fighters that are trying to get in that top 8 and get some of that prize money. Of course, it is to be determined what that final number is going to be, but it's going to be a big division, right? And we're going to see all of that action boil down to a single series of moments on Saturday night, right? And so I also wanted to give you guys an opportunity to speak a bit about the competitive format, right? If you make the top 8, are all of those fighters in the top 8 going to be featured in the night show? Are there any special features of the bracket? Do you just throw everybody registered in there and do a totally random shuffle? Just talk a little bit about the format, because I think the accessibility here is big. I think there's a lot of fighters who legitimately and deservedly think, hey, I should show up. I can get in this top 8, no problem. Even if they know, like, okay, I'm maybe not the guy that's going to be able to win the whole thing, but I'm top 8, right? So take us through some of the formats of those fighters that are thinking about it, like, ooh, I think I could do this. Walk us through what it's going to look like, and for the fans too. How is this all going to shake out through the eliminations and into Saturday night?
Well, Jackson, it's funny you should say that, because me and my wife here have been sparring about this for the last few weeks. How many people can we put on the stage? You know what I mean? Now that we got the women that are going to be doing the same thing, it's going to be difficult to get 16 fighters out there, still do our fighting grands and still do team fighting and so forth and so on. It will be really hard to be able to fit that before we end up having to do the tournament the next morning.
So we're still working on that, on what we're doing for the finals, but we definitely want the 8 men and women on stage for, collecting their money, taking a group picture, and everything else. So we definitely want them all there, but we're still working on the logistics and how much time we have.
We're looking at a possibility of doing the top 4 men fighters, the top 4 women fighters up there. You know what I mean? But we're still trying to figure out if there's a way of getting all 8 of them up there. You know what I mean? It's just going to take some time to figure it out. But because you're part of that broadcast team, so, you know what I mean? But you saw how exciting and what a buildup that can be when you're doing that. You know what I mean? It's really exciting. So,
sometimes it all depends on who wins in the forms. Sometimes one person wins several divisions. So now you don't have 4 people up there doing a routine. You only have one doing a demonstration because they unanimously ended up, not having any competition in the finals. So a lot of that comes into play as well.
So forms competitors, if you want to help out your fighter peers, go and sweep at the Ocean States, and you're going to give the fighters some more time in the line.
Yes.
But hey, the common denominator here that I want fans to understand, if you tune in to the Ocean State Finals, you're going to watch a lot of fighting. And I think that is great for the sport, because I think all too often, because there are so many forms and weapons divisions, and it's great. I was a weapons guy. I love forms and weapons. But there are so many different divisions and so many different age groups. And now we break down the overall grands to be such these small little 1v1 divisions that there's a ton of forms and weapons on stage by default. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it does mean that we typically don't get to see as much fighting as a fighting fan like me would like to see on some of these big night show stages. So I love the fact that no matter what, whether it's the Final Four, the Elite Eight, it doesn't matter what it winds up being, we're going to see a lot of fights in Rhode Island on Saturday night, and that's something that I think the entire community should be happy about. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. The other thing is that when we make a promise to do something, we try to stick to that promise. And sometimes I get tied up into something that I say, and I'm saying, "Gee, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have said that." But nonetheless, last year we mentioned about the women. You know what? If you guys show up, we're going to give you more money. And they did. So we are going to give them more money, and we're going to give them that because that's something we promised. I also said that we're going to try to get a couple of junior grands up there at night, and give the juniors some play too. And now I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt about it. But you know what? I'm also excited about seeing, because some of the junior fighting can be just as good as the adult fighting as you've seen. And you know what I mean? And you know what? So that's why I'm saying we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do this.
For sure. And I love that initiative too.
We are going to have some junior fighters. We are going to have a couple of junior fighting up there.
And we're also starting a half hour early this year. It's going to be at 6:30 instead of 7 for the finals.
Awesome. Yeah, Awesome. I love that. And especially having some of those junior fighters in the finals, that's one thing that Forms and Weapons benefits from a fan's perspective, is if you're a 10-year-old Forms and Weapons competitor and you're going to be the next best thing, by the time you're an adult, you've already been on stage for almost 10 years, right? And so that the fans get to see you grow within the sport. And by the time you're an adult, you've developed a following, right? And a lot of times with fighting, we see people come out of nowhere at the age of 18 or sometimes maybe 17, right? And we see these people come out of nowhere when in reality, we could have been telling their story all the way through the junior divisions, just like we do for the Forms and Weapons athletes, right? So I think that's another big step forward for the sport, that if we're getting some junior Forms and Weapons on stage, let's be sure that the junior fighters are represented up there as well.
Exactly.
I want to pivot, because another thing that the Ocean State Grand Nationals does that is so special is you guys do an amazing job of always having some special guests at the event, right? Over the years, we've seen a ton of them, Bill Superfoot Wallace and the like. It's been really incredible getting to see so many of these kind of iconic sport karate legends that have been around at the Ocean State Grand Nationals. And special guest this year, of course, is somebody close to my heart. He was my roommate many, many times. I watched him win many, many fights, both on this side of the pond and over in Europe. And it is the great Zolt Marati, and I'm so excited to get a chance to see him there. And the reason that I segue to that is to shout out Ocean States for always bringing in some sport karate legends. But I also wanted to give Coach an opportunity because I feel like you've got stories about everybody that's ever worn the black and white, right? So I want to give you a chance, even if it's 2 or 3 stories, whatever you got, share with us a little bit about the special guest this year, Zolt Marati.
Well, Zolt is so special. And the funny thing about it was because I was in charge of WACO in the United States for a long time, for 25 years, I got to see Zolt when he was a junior, you know what I mean? When he was young, fighting, And I said, that's a pretty good fighter right there, And then you see him as he got up and he just became one of those incredible fighters, incredible. And when we brought him in here from overseas, and I got to tell you that he had to adapt to the way we fight here, where he basically had his own thing that how they fight in Europe. And then he had to come here and actually learn how to actually fight here and be able to do it. And I got to tell you, that guy there, he is so impressed. What impressed me more than anything about Zolt? I got to tell you, he couldn't speak a word of English when he first got on our team. Basically, we just point him in the direction and say, go, you know what I mean? And but he could communicate somewhat. He knew what we were talking about, but he couldn't speak English, And then, like 2 years later, we're at the U.S. Open, and he was doing when we had that experience, right? The Paul Mitchell experience, and he's talking perfect English with everybody, you know what I mean? That really impressed me because you know why? You're seeing some of these professional athletes that come in from overseas, and they've been here for 10 years, and they still can't speak English. You know what I mean? And they have to have an interpreter and stuff. And I'm saying, like, you know what? Zolt and Laszlo, they came over. They did a terrific job of adapting themselves here. And let me tell you something. Zolt won the respect here in North America, just like he got the respect in Europe. You know what I mean? And that's really special. And he's won my tournament many times. And I just love being with the guy. You know what I mean? He's just a really gentleman. I never seen him get mad. You know what I mean? I know, he's got that competitive thing to him, but he's somebody that has gone everywhere in the world and has won.
Yes.
And, that's the thing.
A classy fighter, and he one of the cool things that we have going on this year is our sponsor with Ocean State Collision Center. If you stop by their booth at the tournament, we have free T-shirts with Zolt's picture, and it says 10-time WACO World Champion, and they look beautiful. So
they are.
They're free, but you got to stop by the Ocean State Collision booth to get those, and it's definitely going to be a collector's item.
And Zolt's going to sign some of them. He'll sign the shirts for them and stuff like that there. And again, we're giving they're giving the shirts away for free. And it's really cool. Really cool.
Awesome. I love that. And by the way, I know Mr. Tangary's tuning in. Put one of those off to the side for me, please. I'm gonna need it. But no, I love kind of that testimony about Zolt, because that was the thing that I always respected so much about him, because I got asked to be on Paul Mitchell just 4 or 5 months before the move was made to acquire Zolt and Laszlo. And it was a time of great shift within the team, right? I was this young 14-year-old kid that I was very fortunate that you guys kind of took a chance on fresh into the 14 to 17 division. And I was so excited to be surrounded by all of these legends, right? I was on the team at the same time as, it was 2012. So like Kalman Choka had just retired, but Caitlin Deschelle was still around. Matt Imig was around at US Open that year. Chelsea Nash was still on the team. Like we really had this team of like seasoned veterans and people that had become sport karate legends. And in the span of that next 6 to 8 months, the team was totally different. We had like a complete roster turnover. And, one of the first leaders of that new generation of Paul Mitchell was Zolt. And I learned so much from him about what it means to be a professional and carry yourself the right way. And for Zolt, in an era of very demonstrative, flashy, emotional fighters, Zolt was the one that was always steady. You knew what you were going to get from Zolt. You knew that he was going to be respectful, whether it was in victory or defeat. And that's one of the things that you can't help but respect a guy who was as great as he was and beat all of the best fighters of his era in head-to-head matchups. But at the same time, maintained that humility and that steadiness and set that example as a positive role model for the entirety of his career. And so there's my testimony to Zolt, one of my favorite teammates that I've ever had. And so just wanted to give him that shout out and put him in the spotlight for a moment. But while we're talking about recognizing people at the Ocean States, you guys have a huge lineup that you're inducting into the Hall of Fame this year. Of course, congratulations to your very own Dante Rodrigues for getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then somebody close to my heart, my dad, Eric Rudolph, is getting in, which I know he's thrilled about for his contributions, to helping run tournaments, particularly the Ocean States. And then some other people that I'm very close to, Ronnie Presley and my old friend and rival, Reed Presley, getting inducted as well. It was an honor for me to get inducted last year. And I think that what you guys are doing with the Ocean States Hall of Fame and the people that you're recognizing, I think it's just really special, and wanted to open the floor a little bit. I know that I'm not naming everybody because I'm just going off the dome here, but just wanted to give you both the opportunity to speak a bit about the importance of the Ocean States Hall of Fame and kind of how you're showing respect to those people that have been influential to the Ocean States along the way.
Yep. We've had, I actually have up on the website, all the previous winners, and we go back from Chuck Merriman and Billy Blanks and Chuck Norris and just a ton of celebrities and legends in the martial arts. And then there's
her also, she's in the Hall of Fame.
There's a lot of people behind the scenes, so we like to recognize those legends and future legends, but also people behind the scenes like Ronnie and Eric that work so hard on organizing and coordinating and making sure that, one ring's too big, trying to pull some of those divisions out and just trying to make the whole tournament run smooth. So hats off to all their help over the years. And then we have Dawn Kemp, who is one of our black belts. And she's, she might scorekeep, she might help me at registration, she might judge, or she's helping out here at the school prior to the tournament, whether it's covering some classes so we can get some work done or whatever. So, that's definitely a behind the scenes, someone that's not in the spotlight that we would like to recognize. And then, of course, John Politi is getting inducted. He's been coming and helping out and also as a competitor, and now coaching as well. And we have Peaches Constable. She's going to be inducted. She's competed at the tournament. She's been helping out judging for several years, and we appreciate her being there as well as Reed. And Dante, of course, was there before. He was actually out of my stomach, but he was there. He's been there every single year without choice. So he's due to get inducted into the Hall of Fame and, part of the family and all the work that gets put into the tournament. And we also have Mayor Frank Picozzi. So the mayor it's the mayor of Warwick. The Warwick is one of our sponsors as well. And, he's always been very supportive of us and the event and different things that we do in the community. And he's very, very a people person as far as the mayor goes, not like a typical politician, but he's out there with the people and and we definitely want to recognize him this year and give him that award. So
our mayor went as far as we had a real bad snowstorm here, and he jumped in his own truck and was plowing the roads for the city of Warwick. You know what I mean? He's just one of those type of guys, and his Christmas display that he does at nighttime is iconic over here. You know what I mean?
It's crazy, and he does it as a fundraiser. People donate, and of course you did mention Reed Presley, but he is our other inductee and has won so many grands at the Ocean State, and it's been on stage, and he's actually going to be helping out this year. So we're excited to have him back at the Ocean State.
Yeah, it's listen, all these people have a story. Every one of them have a story. You know what I mean? And it's good to have them recognized, and especially your father and Ronnie. You know what I mean? They're unsung heroes, so to speak, and a lot of people don't realize. But those two gentlemen there work really hard at tournaments to make it work right. But you know what? At some point, I got a Jackson Rudolph story that I'd like to talk about at some point.
Oh gosh! Well, Coach, we've made a hard right turn here, but I guess I'll let you go for it. I'm scared. What do you got?
You know what, Jackson? I don't know if you remember this or not, and I don't even remember what year it was. You probably know better than I do, but it was at the Twin Towers tournament in New York. And you was competing in a junior division, and I don't even know what age group it was. Maybe 11 and 12, 13, 14, I don't know, something like that. I was the center referee. Do you remember this here?
I remember it vividly.
I was the center judge when you was competing, So you're winning all these divisions. I said, well, this kid's pretty good. You know what I mean? So I talked to Steve Babcock about it a little while after. I said, you see that kid over there? I said, he's really good, Steve. He's somebody that we got to look at in the future. I said, you know what? I judged him today, and this guy's got a lot of potential. This kid here won almost every division that you was in that day, And I said, but that's my Jackson Rudolph. Now, this goes back to the Twin Towers, because I remember I was the center judge at the Twin Towers when you was competing there. Did you remember that?
Of course. And my side of the story, for those of you tuning in, like Coach tells the story like, oh, yeah, I was judging and this kid was good. Since that was probably 2009, 2010 that happened. But since 2006, I knew that Paul Mitchell was the team that I wanted to be on. And for those of you that aren't at the tournaments all the time, Coach, he doesn't judge because he knows that he makes too many people nervous when he sits down, right? Because everybody wants to get on Paul Mitchell. And so for Coach to actually be judging a ring was like a super rare opportunity. He's typically doing a whole bunch of other important stuff to help make the tournament happen. But there he was sitting in my ring judging me. And to me, that was like, walking into your audition for American Idol with Simon Cowell watching it. You know what I mean? It's like it was one of the most stressful Friday evenings of competition because I was like, this is my chance. I've got Coach right here. I got to show what I got. And so I'm very, very, very fortunate that I was able to make a good impression on you that night. And I don't want to make it too much about me, so I am going to use it as a segue. Because talking about judging, see this transition here? One effort that you guys are spearheading that I'm very, very proud of and happy that you guys are behind this and other promoters kind of working with you and you've gotten NASCA's support in doing this is creating a certification system for NASCA judges that is already in implementation. You guys are working on continuing to improve it and grow that program. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak about this program that is essential, right? It's been a hot topic recently about certifying judges and making sure that there's protocols that we follow for forms, weapons, and fighting. And so it's a big step in the right direction to make our sport more professional, and you guys are contributing to it heavily. So just want to allow you to speak on that.
Yes, it's the NASCA certification is something that we felt was really in need, and just making the judges go over the rules and just trying to get all the tournaments on the same page as far as, doing a little cheat sheet before the division and kind of going over with your side judges and telling them, okay, this is creative, this stuff is allowed, this stuff is not, and just refreshing them. And a lot of times you assume, you can be sitting next to an official that's, got triple the amount of years in the martial arts than I do, but they haven't gone to a tournament in 20 years, or they only go to that one local tournament, and, they're not familiar, and NASCAR rules are changing all the time, and I've had comments, well, I was certified back, in 1995 or whatever, but, that's awesome, but the rules change, and we're on top of it. Anytime we need to make a change, like we did the concussion protocol this, actually in the middle of last year, things that are really, really important, not letting a fighter continue during the tournament if you think they might have had a concussion, and just knowing all the rules is really, really important. So, that's something that we've been working hard, myself, Mark Russo, Bob Liker, David Bossonet. We're all kind of, Mike Politi has helped at some of them. We've done different seminars or clinics at each tournament. Not all of them, but a lot of the tournaments. And we try to concentrate on one topic whenever possible. So we've done Trad Challenge and had, experts in that field just come out and tell you what you should look for and different things, the differences between certain forms or certain styles. And then we've had, I think it was Reed and Vince in Washington, D.C. that came out and demonstrated some of the CMX and showing, what is kind of cheating going past a 360 and we're doing a quad butterfly kick and different skills like that. So, and then we've done just a fighting one and just concentrated on the fighting. So it's, I think it's a step in the right direction to improve the judging. And, we hope more people come out and get certified. And, and just keep learning. I mean, we're only going to get better by learning. I mean, I learned things when I went to these things from the traditional challenge and the CMX. I was learning a lot of stuff. So I think it's great for the judges.
Absolutely. And that's something that is inherent to the martial arts, right? When we become a martial artist, we agree that we are going to be lifelong learners, right? We're going to continue to grow and evolve, right? A black belt is basically like getting a new white belt. There's a whole new journey of things that you can learn. And, I think that there is an antiquated mentality that, if I've been doing martial arts for 20 years, then I don't need to be told how to judge. But it's a whole new ballgame. It's a new thing to learn. And I think that as martial artists, everybody should embrace that spirit of understanding that we can always learn something new, right? And the same thing is true for me, right? Like, sure, I can sit down and judge a forms and weapons division anytime and know what's going on. But if I'm going to go into a fighting ring, even though I'm a huge fighting fan, I need to brush up on all the rules and make sure that I know exactly, what the rules are for that specific NASCAR event, because fighting rules especially change wildly in between different leagues and things of that nature. So I love the fact that for NASCAR specifically, you guys are spearheading this certification program. And I think it's a huge step in the right direction for the sport as a whole. And as we kind of transition to this part of the podcast where we're talking a little bit less about Ocean States and starting to talk a little bit more about the past and the future of sport karate, I want to tie it back to the Ocean States one more time, but this time it'll allow for a little bit more storytelling, because we mentioned earlier in the show how Ocean States is such a historic event. It's been around for so long, and there's been so many great memories from the Ocean States. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, what makes a tournament is the iconic performances that you remember from that tournament, right? If I think about the New England Open, I think about some of the fights that I watched there. If I think about the U.S. Open, I think about some of the forms and weapons performances that I saw on that stage, right? And for Ocean States, there's a hodgepodge of all kinds of different forms, weapons, fights that have happened over the years that my mind races back to. And for you guys, as the people running the show, over the years, are there any particular performances that stand out to you as like, I still remember in 2005 when this happened, or back in the 90s, or just 5 years ago, or wherever it was? What are some of those big moments from the Ocean States that just stick out in your mind?
Well, there's so many. But there are some things that are memorable moments that have happened there. And I'll give you one that it wasn't a performance, but it was what happened there. The first year, the first time that Chuck Norris came in, and we had done a huge kickathons. I had first of all, we were going to raise X amount of dollars for kick drugs out of America. And we were supposed to raise $60,000 for the organization. I said, we'd like to have them come in and we'd like to, get them to do it. So, believe it or not, one of the casinos wanted to bankroll the whole thing, but they wanted Chuck there for the whole day and this, that, and the other, And I said, you know what? I'd rather us do it through the schools. And I had like 40 schools, 30 or 40 schools that went out and they did kickathons to raise the money. And then we took pictures with Chuck with the schools that raised the money at the tournament. And that was bedlam, if you remember correctly. It was crazy, But having Chuck on stage, and we were supposed to give him $60,000. And that night, when me and Christine went up on stage, I said, we raised just a little bit more. So, we presented him with $102,000 check. Okay. We raised over $100,000, and he was just knocked for a loop. You know what I mean? He couldn't believe it. He said he's never had anybody give him more money than what they wanted. You know what I mean? And you know what? That's what started a very good relationship with us and Chuck. And he came there, and it was just seeing his face and seeing what we were able to do for his thing that he had going was you couldn't even put words into that. You know what I mean? And that was a special moment. That happened back in 2001. We had him come back in 2005, and we did again. We only raised $87,000 that year, but he was so. It was for a great cause. That's what it was. You know what I mean? As you know, because you've been very much involved with this here, is Kevin Thompson. And you know what? I can't tell you what it felt like for me to be able to spearhead, so to speak, getting Kevin that vehicle that he needed so he could go places that he wasn't able to go. You know what I mean? And believe it or not, it all happened at my school. We have a doctor's office that rents from us, from our building, So this woman came in with her husband, and he had a wheelchair, and she was having a hard time getting him out of the car. So I went over and helped them and stuff, and it was difficult, the two of us, but we got him in a wheelchair, and she brought him inside and stuff. And then when I got my truck, I'm saying, like, my friend has to go through this all the time like this here? I can't have it.
It got very hard for them to drive him around. But their funny story is when they actually delivered the van to him, they put Kevin in the wheelchair in the back and didn't lock him in. And they were, Steve and him, they're driving, and Kevin's going all over the.
First of all,
Kevin loved it.
Mistake number one, we had Steve drive. That was mistake number one.
And they didn't know what they were doing as far as locking in a wheelchair.
We didn't know. So me and Chris Rappold and one of Kevin's good friends were over there trying to hold him in as he's rolling from back of the van, But seeing Kevin's face when we came in there with that van and being able to give it to him, and we had an electric chair that we got for him that time. So, they didn't have use the regular one that they had, you know what I mean? So we all went out to lunch, you know what I mean? That day, it's the first time Kevin's been in a restaurant for a while, you know what I mean? So the funny story is that I called him the next day and to see how he was doing, And, his wife answers the phone and says, oh, yeah, him and KJ are at the mall right now. I can't tell you how emotional that was for us to get the van. And we did that through kickathons, through the Ocean State Grand Nationals that we did. People ran in, and I think you remember us that night telling them that we raised X amount of dollars to buy the van, you know what I mean? And then when we delivered, it was just special. So, and Kevin being on stage, as you know, Jackson, because he was there, to see him get up off that chair and, for him to break the board as we were doing it for the ALS thing, and special moments. And you know what? There were so many different performances over the years that it's so difficult for me. I mean, you guys were, I got to tell you, I can't even put it into words. Every year. Now we got new people that are coming out and doing things that like no one's seen before or whatever, and that's because everybody pushes themselves, to a degree. I mean, they work so hard.
A lot of big first time things at the Ocean State too, because when I was on Trans World Oil or the Atlantic team, that was our tournament that we debuted at. It was also the tournament that the Paul Mitchell team debuted at. It was the first tournament Team Macho performed at, and now I have Team CBR. So it's always been like, our first event for some of those big teams. So, I have that memory as well, being part of all of them.
But, and a lot of the people that have won over the years that we've had on that stage and competed at the Ocean State Grand National are doing incredible now. I mean, look at the Ross Levine, how he's doing, and the kickboxing that he's doing right now, and Raymond Daniels the same way, and now the other one there, that just fought
Elijah.
No, Michael Page.
Michael Page.
Oh,
Michael Page fought at the Ocean State Grand Nationals. You know what I mean? And now look at what they're doing with the UFC and stuff.
Billy Blanks, and if you go way back, and a lot of people.
Steve Nasty Anderson and Richard Plowden and Anthony Price, all these guys. Again, I don't want to mention too many names because I'm going to leave so many other names out. You know what I mean? It's just incredible. And some special things like watching Cam out there competing, and his dad competed on that same stage, and then watching Avery competing, and his dad competed on that stage. You know what I mean? And I mean, you know what? It's special, and it happened here at the Ocean State. You know what I mean? And we take a lot of pride in that. And the history, as we mentioned before, is what it's about.
I couldn't have put it better myself, and it's all of those special memories that make Ocean States what it is. Of course, I've been very blessed to be there for a lot of the stories that you were just talking about, and the humanitarianism with what you guys have done at Ocean States, with the kickathon that you mentioned and raising the money for Kevin. And I mean, there's a full list in the work that you guys did for the Tori Lynn Andriozzi Foundation. And I mean, there's been so many of these great initiatives at the Ocean States over the years. I just really want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the community for what you've done using your platform at the Ocean States to make some of these truly incredible human things happen that transcend, what we do when we go out there and do a form or fight in a match. And I mean, it's something that is, it's so much more important than anything that we do on the mat. Right. And I'm just grateful that you guys have the heart to do that and have continued to do that for so many years. And I also want to thank you guys for taking all of the time to be able to come on a show like this and share these memories. So I promise I don't want to take too much more of your time. But Coach, I know that I could not bring the co-founder and head coach of Team Paul Mitchell on my show again. and not ask questions about Team Paul Mitchell in particular. So for the fans that tuned in to hear Coach talk about Paul Mitchell, and obviously one of our great members in Christine, if you want to interject any stories, go ahead. But Coach, one thing that you are known for amongst the team members is anytime that we have a team meeting, Coach is going to have a story, and it's going to be right. And so what I want to ask you to do right now on the podcast is for the members of the audience that have not worn the Team Paul Mitchell uniform, can you give them just a glimpse? Can you pretend that you're in a team meeting for just a few minutes and just give us one of those coach stories, whether it's something motivational, like the team just got back in from a Friday night, we got to prepare for Saturday, whatever it is, right? Give us a glimpse into one of those team meetings. Peel the curtain back just a little, and what does one of those classic coach stories sound like?
Well, I have a couple, okay? But as you know, I could go on for quite a long time. But we were at a tournament it was in the World Series of Martial Arts. It was in Virginia, I believe it was, or whatever. And we weren't having a very good night on Friday night. The fighters, we lost our team fight. They weren't doing good fighting, and it wasn't in a good mood, if you know what I mean, So what happened when we had the team meeting, as we do on Friday nights, when everybody was there, I said, okay, I want the fighters to stay back because I got to talk to them, And so the former people had left, and it was just us and the fighters there. I said, did we have a problem? And I want to talk to you all about it, I said, I pointed to one of our guys, and I said, do you feel like you can beat anybody in this sport? I said, you're taking too long to answer me. That means there's doubt in your mind when you're doing this. I can't have that, okay? That's simple. Every one of you guys in this room are in here for a reason, because you was chosen for this year. I know it's what you can do. Okay, when you start having doubt in yourself, that's when we have a problem. We can't have it anymore. I said, you know that I never lost a fight in karate. Never in competition. I never lost a fight in competition. And Damon Gilbert was there, and he said, wow, you went undefeated? And I said, no. I didn't say I won all of them. I said, I just never lost a fight. Lost a lot of matches, but I won the fight, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? I won the respect from the other fighter, and that's what was more important to me than anything. Myself at the time, I didn't care if I won or lost, as long as I won the respect from somebody else, And you know what? I said, right now, you guys not only lost, but you also lost the respect. Can't have that. Not this level. Needless to say, the next day was a whole different story. I don't think anybody lost the match the whole day and the second day. You know what I mean? And it lit the fire that they needed to have. And, I was proud to see them all respond to the way I was talking. You know what I mean? So, my father, who knew nothing about karate, he was just one of these guys that was just a street guy that was tough. And you know what? He came to this country when he was 15 years old, didn't speak English, and he was by himself. Because my grandparents, they had him here. So he was automatic. He was already an American citizen because he was born here in the United States. So when he came over, he didn't have anybody. And he survived this country. He survived this world. He taught me a lot. He's a street guy. He gave me these famous words. Now, everybody should listen to this because it's important. When I was younger, when I started karate, I was only 12 years old. And the next youngest one was 15, and everybody else was all adults. So I fought adults my entire life. There was no kids. You know what I mean? And my father comes into the school one day and he says, hey, how come you're making these guys hit you and you're not hitting them back? So, well, they're hitting me first. He He said, yeah, but if they're close enough to hit you, could you hit them? I said, yeah, I guess I could, So he said, okay, well, then you got to hit them. You got to hit them hard. Now, as you know, I was 15, 16 years old. I was a rather strong kid. And the next day changed my entire life. This is great. As soon as they were close enough to hit me, I was hitting them. I said, wow, I was getting hit anyways. Why not throw it back? You know what I mean? And you know what? I gave that message to the guys that night, and they just responded incredible, The other story, and I'll make this one a little quicker than that one, but Casey Marks, when we first put Casey on the team, and you might have heard this story too, almost all the tournaments, every tournament she was going to, she was dropping. She'd drop. Then she'd drop. You know what I mean? And it happened like 5 or 6 tournaments in a row. So her mother had said, you drop at the next tournament and they're going to let you go. I'm going to tell you that right now. You don't have a prayer. You're gone. Okay. So she drops. Okay. Again, So didn't say anything. Later on, I went over to her. I said, listen, I got some advice for you. We put you on this team because of who you are, because of what you're capable of doing. Just dropping those weapons, it's not detouring me from what I know you can do. Don't worry about it. You're not going anywhere. You're going to be here for the long haul. I'm behind you, okay? I just want you to know, okay? And Casey needed that. She needed that. As you know, what kind of thing that Casey had become after that. I mean, she was just one of our iconic competitors for women in sport, So, and I think Casey Marks, might even told you that story, you guys. I don't know if she did or not, but I had her back on that, yeah. And now you have the back on all of you guys. You know what I mean? And I can't tell you how proud I am of all the team members that have ever been on this team. We have generations. You know what I mean? And Pedro Xavier, who's going to be at the show, as you know, Pedro was Pedro. And he called me the other day and wished me happy birthday, of course, And but he's going to be at the nighttime show. He's going to be at the tournament, and he was one of the great guys we had on our team. And you've seen the Paul Mitchell box. What better thing can you have than be on a product? We are currently on a product. Okay, me, Steve Babcock, and Pedro and Christine took a picture of us from a long time ago when the 4 of us got together. We're in there, and they got the back of a Paul Mitchell gift box that they're selling. They're selling right now.
I was trying to look off screen and see if, because Gabrielle and I just moved into a new apartment, and I know we've got it somewhere. I had it sitting on the TV stand, and I don't know where it's going to be located. I would love to be able to show it off right now, and I can't find it. So at some point in the future on this show, I will show that item because it is an extremely cool piece of history that we have. It's a Paul Mitchell shampoo product box that has this whole entry about the karate team and the exact picture Coach is talking about on the marketing for it. If anything, I'll post it up on social media later when I find it. It's killing me that I can't find it. But anyway, Coach, thank you so much for telling those stories. And I think everybody that is in the audience right now can understand how great of a motivator you are just from listening to you. And I thought that was a perfect glimpse of what it's like in a team meeting because I've been in those meetings where the Friday night maybe didn't go like we wanted it to, and we get one of those conversations. But it's good because at the end of the day, what's the only thing that matters at a NASCAR tournament? Saturday night. It's survive and advance. It doesn't matter who you lose to, what happens, who drops, who falls. None of that matters if you walk home with an overall, right? And I think that some of those lessons that you taught and some of those speeches that you gave to kind of shift gears and get everybody ready for Saturday were instrumental. And I'll share a quick Coach story because Coach shared a Jackson story, so I got to throw one back. But I remember there was a year early in my adult career, it was one of my first years as an adult. And I was a Lone Ranger, right? It was one of those transition years where I had been kind of the younger kid on the team, and then I came to be the adult, and some guys retired, but we hadn't recruited. Like, we didn't have Tyler, Reed, Cole. We didn't have those guys on the team yet. And so there was a period of time where it was just me, right? And I remember I was sitting down waiting for a division. I want to say it was Battle of Atlanta. And I'm just like sitting there minding my own business. And anybody that knows me knows that once we're into the flow of a Friday night, I'm pretty low key. Like, I'm very animated when I'm on stage, but when I'm off stage and kind of transitioning between divisions, I kind of just, sit there and I'm in my zone, and I'm not, people don't usually talk to me. Like, I'm just kind of there. You know what I mean? And coach comes over and sits next to me, and he doesn't say anything for a while. And after 3 or 4 minutes, he kind of nudges me on the shoulder, and we're watching people warm up for the next division or whatever. And coach goes, there's nobody here that can beat you, right? And I look at coach and I'm like, Coach? And he's like, yeah, you're the best person here. Go out there and do your form and everything will be fine. And I'm like, you know what? He's right. And it gave me, like, from that moment forward, I didn't just apply it to that one form at the Battle of Atlanta. Like, that was something that I anchored myself on for years to come. It's like, oh, well, if coach thinks I'm the best one here, then nobody can beat me, right? And it was that confidence that kind of drove me to become, like I said, that was early in my adult career. It drove me to become the adult competitor that I became, where I wasn't the 18-year-old kid trying to prove myself. I was the 19-year-old kid trying to dominate and be one of the best to ever do it, competing against history, not just competing against my competitors, right? And the words that coach gave me in that little 30-second interaction, that's something that I carried with me for years to come. And coach probably doesn't even remember it because, like I said, it was the tiniest little thing, but it meant so much to me and it impacted me so deeply. And while we're talking about coaching, I also want to give Christine a chance to talk about this. And I know we're starting to run long, but this is something, number one, I got to make sure that Christine gets her flowers, because I feel like people do not often enough give Christine her flowers for the career that she had as a competitor. Right. Coach and I were talking recently about a listing of some all-time competitors that came out. And there was a particular name snubbed that was absolutely criminal. And that was Christine, because if you're going to make a list of the top females to ever do martial arts, Christine has to be on it. But I give that introduction to say, with Team CBR, you just had one of your members, Caitlin Vong at Cowboy Up, another NASCAR World Tour event. She became the first person that I can remember in a long time. Like, in recent memory, we've had Alex Mancias, who's won some weapons and won some fighting. Before that, you had like a Jason Borelli who won some forms and won some fighting, right? Casey Marks Nash was one of the others to do it relatively recently, forms, weapons, fighting, right? But truly, it's really, really rare that you see somebody that's able to show up at an event and win the overall, not just over the course of a season, but at one event, win the forms, the weapons, and the fighting overall. One of your team members, Caitlin Vong, just did it, so I want to give huge congratulations to her for achieving the feat. But I also want to give you an opportunity not only to give some props to Caitlin, but reflect yourself. I mean, this is something that you did fairly routinely, showing up at tournaments and being able to win all 3 of the grands. And I'm tooting your horn for you so that you don't have to be humble when you answer the question. But just talk about, the difficulty of being able to pull that off and how impressive it is to see an athlete that's able to do that here in the modern era as well.
It is. It's so many different, so much different training for, they complement each other, but I know when I was training for these competitions, I would do like my forms and weapons in the morning, and then I would train in my fighting later in the day, because that's kind of how a tournament was. You'd fight at the end of the day, you'd do forms and weapons 9 a.m. So, I kind of separated the 2 of them. So it does take a lot of training, and, she did amazing this weekend. And, you just, you don't realize unless you're in those shoes, a lot of the issues that you have, like where they put you back to back. And I was doing wushu. So I was wearing, a silk uniform, if you had a regular karate uniform and you had a fight in it, it's not that big of a deal. You do it in the dojo all the time, but to have a silk uniform, with with shoes on to do forms, and then they're calling you up to fight, and you have to go change. And I'll never forget, one of them was like an arena, where you had to run up these stairs like a football stadium, like trying to run up these stairs to find a bathroom to go change and fly back down, do the next division, and fight, and then go back and get your stuff on for weapons. And it would be crazy at the nighttime show. And you'd have, what about the guy? Why can't you put like one of the guys in between, or, one of the men in divisions or something else? And I'd always end up being back to back to back. And it's tough. It's tough. But, Caitlin had all those grands, and, I just told her, just concentrate on what's first. Forget about the rest. Don't think about the fighting. Don't think about the weapons. Don't think about anything. You got Korean Challenge first. Let's focus on that. And, and we'll just tackle the next one when it's done, and she did, and she did a great job with it. And I was really happy to see her on stage and winning that fighting grand, because I see a lot of potential with her fighting. And a lot of times, even on a Friday, she'll opt out of the women's open weight because same thing, they got her doing forms. I've seen her, they're saying, no, your fighting is going to start. So you're going to have to go change, do fighting, and then go back to your forms division. And, it kind of plays with you when you bouncing around like that and you don't know really what to focus on. So she's on Friday night, she hasn't been doing the open weight, but she has been doing the regular lightweight, super lightweight division on the Saturday after her forms and weapons. And, she just had an amazing weekend. I was very, very proud of her. And I can't say enough about it.
Awesome. And nobody better to give that guidance through that night show for her than you yourself, who we already talked about, who has been there, done that many, many times before. And for anybody that's tuning in, if you're interested in going and watching all of those amazing performances from Caitlin Vong or any of the other performances from Cowboy Up, make sure that you head on over to the Sport Karate Zone YouTube channel. If you're already watching us on YouTube, just make sure you click over to the Cowboy Up playlist and catch all of the great action from that event. We had 3 different people helping us out, trying to get as much footage as we can and trying to bring back some of that consistent YouTube coverage of sport karate, where you can go back and find your own videos from the event. So I think we've got somewhere in the ballpark of 70 different individual performances and fights from Cowboy Up. Again, that's on the Sport Karate Zone YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out to Michael Brumet, Sam Brumet, and Sarah Campbell for being our boots on the ground to get the phones out and make sure that we're recording some of those big moments. And I noticed when I was uploading the footage, there was a whole lot of Caitlin Vong being uploaded. So if you're a fan of hers, make sure you go and check that out. And Coach and Christine, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to be on this show tonight. I want to remind the audience one more time, if you're just tuning in here at the end, make sure you rewind this, because we talked a lot about how great the Ocean State Grand Nationals is going to be. This is a tournament that not only is going to be full of superstar talent throughout the sport karate community, but it's also going to be a tournament that is doing these things for the right reasons, to help people out, to move the sport in the right direction. Then if you love what we do, you better go and support it, because more than just about any other promoters that I know, or promoters, I mean, they truly are going above and beyond to try to help this sport grow and putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And as a community, we should thank them for that. So Coach and Christine, thank you again. I just want to give you an opportunity for any closing comments.
I just would like to mention about today being the deadline. So we have a couple more hours, but people that want to think that they could be in the nighttime show and want to use music for their routine, that we have a music library and a form to fill out. You just go on there. There's no cost to the competitor. They just, find a good song that they want to use and, reserve it, and just hopefully you're on stage and need it at the finals. But that's very important. And other than that, we're looking forward to seeing everybody here in Rhode Island.
I would assume for those people that don't try to reserve a song, that you're not thinking about being on stage. And that's the wrong thought to have.
Unless they're doing it without music. That could be another
That's
reason.
correct. That's correct.
For sure.
The only other closing comment I forgot to mention earlier about the Kevin Thompson Award.
Yes.
We give out a trophy to anybody that brings students to the tournament, the instructor or coach. If they bring a team in or if they bring their school in or whatever, we give the Kevin Thompson Award out we give it to the coach or the instructor of that team, and that the instructor can give it out to whoever they want to give it to.
The MVP of the tournament.
The most valuable person. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean had to be somebody that won, but somebody that did an outstanding job and went above and beyond what they normally do. But that's the instructor's choice or the coach's choice, and we give those trophies out for free. So the instructor come over, we give them the trophy, and we keep Kevin Thompson's spirit alive at the Ocean State. And as you know, the underbelts, they win 7-foot trophies. Mm-hmm. So make sure you bring a wrench to take those things apart if you're flying in.
I love it. And a beautiful message to end on there, Coach. And once again, thank you guys so much for taking the time. And thank you to our audience for tuning in this evening. Again, Sport Karate Zone is the new home of the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. We're going to be live on Facebook and YouTube as often as I'm able to get the podcast to you guys. The plan is to do it just about every other week as we've been starting out here. We've got some really cool guests planned for some upcoming episodes. And yes, I said guests plural, so you guys better buckle your seatbelts for that. And of course, stay tuned for more information about the launch of the Kick Chicks podcast featuring Sammy Smith and my lovely wife, Gabrielle Rudolph. And I think that's all I've got for you guys tonight. So once again, thank you for tuning in to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. This has been episode 131, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Jackson.
Thanks, Jackson.